Hello everyone, and welcome to another Raspberry Pi video for the Progressive Kids Raspberry Pi course. Now, in this video, I'm going to be going over opening and assembling the Vilros Raspberry Pi 4 Basic Kit. Now, this video is mostly for the students that opted to buy their own Raspberry Pi kit directly rather than getting a Raspberry Pi from us. Now, if you received a Raspberry Pi from us, what you should have gotten is something that looks a bit like this. You can see it's a Raspberry Pi that's already been assembled. If not, this is what you should have received in the mail, and in this video I'm going to be going over all of the individual components within this kit and how to assemble everything. So the first question you might have is, what exactly is the Raspberry Pi? Now, you can think of the Raspberry Pi as being similar to a regular desktop computer, where you would plug in a keyboard and mouse and power and display, and use that desktop computer to run your own programs, play some games, or maybe do some programming. Now, where the Raspberry Pi differs from a regular desktop is that it's a lot smaller, consumes a lot less power, and is a lot cheaper than a regular desktop computer. That's what makes the Raspberry Pi so ideal for programming and various electronics projects. And that's why we're using it for this course here. Now, you might be wondering why you might need to buy a kit for the Raspberry Pi rather than just buying the Raspberry Pi directly. Now, the reason for that is the Raspberry Pi, similar to a desktop computer, doesn't come with a lot of the peripherals that you might need to get up and running with using it. So, for example, the Raspberry Pi doesn't actually come with a keyboard or a mouse, or even a case or power supply for that matter. So what a kit allows us to do is it allows us to get a lot of the basic components that we need to quickly get up and running with the Raspberry Pi. Now, in addition to this basic kit that we have right here, you'll also need a few other components to be able to get up and running with the Raspberry Pi. What those components would be is a micro SD card. This micro SD card is 16 gigabytes. We would recommend that you get a micro SD card that's at least 16 gigabytes or more. And the micro SD card is what's going to hold the operating system and all of the programs that we're going to be using for our Raspberry Pi. For instructions on how to install an operating system onto your micro SD card, please watch our videos on how to install Raspberry Pi OS on either a Mac or a Windows computer. In addition to the micro SD card, you're also going to need some way to plug in your micro SD card into your computer, again to install the operating system. You can either have a micro SD card to SD card adapter, or if your computer doesn't have an SD card slot, you can also get a micro SD to USB adapter. They both do the same thing, they just plug into your main computer. And in addition to these, you're also going to need to have a regular Ethernet cable. Now, instead of plugging in a keyboard and mouse and display to the Raspberry Pi for this course, we're actually going to take advantage of whatever desktop computer or laptop you already have and plug the Raspberry Pi into that and allow you to use the display and keyboard and mouse that's already built into whatever device you have. And to be able to do that, we need to have an Ethernet cable. Alright, so those are all the components that you'll need for the Raspberry Pi besides what's already in the kit. So without further ado, let's move this to the side and get started with opening up this kit we have over here. Alright, so you can see I have a pair of scissors right here, and I'm going to go ahead and open up nice and easily the Raspberry Pi kit. There we go, and now we can take out all of the components. So you can see all of the parts that this kit comes with is a micro HDMI to HDMI cable. We have a Raspberry Pi 4 case. We have a power supply. We have the Raspberry Pi itself. And we have a few heat sinks for the Raspberry Pi. And there's also there's a quick start guide to give you some information on the Pi. Alright, now that we're done going over all of the components of the kit, let's go over assembling the Raspberry Pi itself. So you can see here for this video we have the Pi 4 2GB version. For the purposes of this class, either the 2 GB or 4 GB RAM versions will work just fine. So let's go ahead and open up this Pi. You can see your brand new Raspberry Pi board over here. And you can also see it comes with a nice little card and some instructions. We can put those to the side. Alright, now let's do a quick overview of the ports on the Pi. You can see we have a USB-C. That's going to be for our power. And then we have 2 micro HDMI, that's for a display. Then we have audio. Then we have 4 USB ports. And then we also have our Ethernet jack. And then you can see we also have all these pins over here. These are our GPIO, general purpose input output, and we're going to be using those for to plug in all of our electronics, like our sensors and our lights and our wires. Alright, next thing is going to be these heat sinks. Now the Raspberry Pi 4 can get quite a bit hotter than the older Raspberry Pi versions, so putting on these heat sinks helps to control the amount of heat that's outputted by the Raspberry Pi. So you can see we have 4 of them right here. Let me see if I can get them untangled. So you can see we have 4 of them. And the way we're going to put them onto the Raspberry Pi, you can see there's a small blue sticker over here. And by taking it off, you can see that there's a bit of adhesive on these heat sinks. And what we're going to do is we're going to put them onto all of their corresponding locations. So I'm going to put this one on the CPU, the big square one, and then I'll put this big rectangle one onto this chip over here, the RAM. Just like that. And then we have 2 more about the same size. I'm going to put one on this other chip over here. Try to put them on more straight than I do. Okay, and then we have one last one. We can go ahead and put that on this last chip over here. Yeah, and now all these do is they just try to dissipate the heat to make it so that your Raspberry Pi can run cooler and faster. So that's all. That's going to be all 4 of the heat sinks. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put on the case. I'm going to go ahead and open the box just like so. And then you can see our Raspberry Pi case right here. And it comes with some more fun instructions. We can put those to the side as well. And can unwrap the plastic off of here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just press on the sides and get the 2 sides of the case off. You can see it comes with a few screws. We actually don't need these screws. These screws are for if we want to attach the Raspberry Pi camera onto this case, which we don't need to really do. Then you can see we have these 4 rubber feet. You can go ahead and take them off and put them onto the bottom of the case right here to make it so that your Pi doesn't move around so much. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get the Pi all settled up in the case. And you can see the top half of the case actually comes with a fan. What this fan is for is to, again, the Raspberry Pi 4 does get a little hot, so this fan is just here to help keep it cool. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the 2 wires for the fan, and I've figured out the best way is to really just route them through this hole over here for the GPIO pins, just like this, and to hold them out like that. And once you do that, you can put the top half of the case on. You can see I'm still holding the 2 wires. And then to get the fan powered, what you want to do, let me zoom in, is you want to put the red positive wire up in the very first GPIO pin, just like that, very first top left pin, and then you want to put the black pin on the third pin down on the right side. There we go. All right, just like that. So we've got one on the first pin, and then one on the third pin down on the right side. And now what that's going to allow us to do is it's going to, when we plug in the power, it'll power the fan as well, which will spin and help to keep the Raspberry Pi cool. All right, now in the very bottom, you can see a slot for our SD card for our storage. So here's my SD card from before. Remember, this did not come with the kit, but it's still required for you to be able to use the Raspberry Pi. And make sure your operating system is installed on the SD card. And what we're going to do is just going to slide it on in here. And make sure it's fully in. And that's it. Alright. And now you can see the last thing we have here is our USB-C power cord. So we can go ahead and take it out. There we go. And there's a zip tie over here, so I'm gonna take that off. Alright, so here's our USB-C cord. You can see it comes with a power switch. And what you want to do is you just want to plug it in over here on the Raspberry Pi. And you can plug the other side in on an outlet. And then finally, I'm going to bring out our RJ45 cable, our Ethernet cable. I'll let you grab the scissors and take it out of the box. Undo the zip tie it comes with. And you can really use any Ethernet cable you want for this over here. Then you can go ahead and plug this into the Ethernet port on the Raspberry Pi, and then just go ahead and plug the other end in onto your computer. So that's how you get started with the Raspberry Pi 4. Stay tuned for the next video where we go over the software installation you need to do on your PC or Mac to be able to connect up to the Raspberry Pi. Alright, thanks for watching this video of an unboxing and assembly of the Vilros Raspberry Pi 4 basic kit. If you had any comments or concerns, be sure to let us know, and thanks for watching.